Hey, welcome back. Mike Callahan here with my co-host Lori Wagner. Going to be going over the Simple Growth sales automations for the lawn care industry, particularly going over the pre-estimate education, the short-term education that happens before the estimate's submitted, or sometimes if we're quick on the draw and we're selling them over the phone, that potentially could be going on in conjunction with that. Predominantly, it's before the actual estimate's provided, though. And we're going to be going over our web lead capture. So when the estimate is requested, we're automatically taking that lead from the website and entering them in the Service Autopilot with no double entry. Lori and I use the analogy of imaginary buckets so we can segment them to what service they're interested in, so we can have an automated but personal conversation around their particular interest. And we can trigger a thing we call the lead letter, the 5 or 6 main reasons why our business is different and why they're going to want to do work with our business other than the competitor, outside of the competitors. And in addition to that, we can have a to-do created for a specific person or role in the business to make sure that the lead request or estimate request off the website is not missed. So, Lori, not sure if I did that justice, but as we go with live videos, they're not always perfect, but hopefully we can get you through this and get you on to the next part of our onboarding process. So, Lori, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Mike. It's always a pleasure to join you on these. What we're going to talk about today is why bother with a website lead capture form. Now, website lead capture form doesn't really roll off the tongue all that easily. However, it's super important. A lot of people that we work with are getting their leads in through their website, and that's a great vehicle for getting your leads in. However, what they're doing is they're getting an email, and the email comes in, and then someone has to look at the email and then has to either copy and paste in and create a new lead, or even retype the information into Service Autopilot. The idea here is to try to relieve you and your company of that administrative burden by having the lead actually enter that information themselves and having it pre-populate and create the lead in Service Autopilot and skipping all of that clerical work. What we want to do is if this sounds like your work process, then you're in luck, because what we aim to do is skip over that, leapfrog over that data entry step for you, so that you can auto create the lead from your website. It would hit Service Autopilot, as I said, and then from Service Autopilot, then you can begin to take steps to nurture and get an estimate out to that lead. Now, one thing that you can do is when you, we supply forms for you, and those forms, there are different ways that you can already be using forms. One would be if you already have a Service Autopilot legacy form, in which case you would want to upgrade to a new form. A second way would be you're already using a Service Autopilot form, and we can work with you to update that specific form to be able to send out to auto create the leads and pre-populate the information and start the short nurture. Or you don't have a Service Autopilot form at all. You're new to Service Autopilot, or you haven't been using it. So Mike has a graphic down at the bottom here that I think he's driving down toward that shows these different states that you can be in. And we want to kind of cover that so that we're going to work with you at whatever state you're at to make this easier for you, so that you can get those leads into Service Autopilot. You can get them auto created, and then you can have the ability to follow up with them, to get the estimate, to get notification of the estimate by email, to get a to-do assigned for someone to do the actual estimate, and then help educate them for to let them know what the services are that they're interested in and what are the ins and outs of those services. Mike, would you like to build on that?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I can test my understanding, because there's a lot going on here, not to be underestimated here. But as you're going through this process with the Simple Growth team, we're here to help you. But Lori, basically, it looks like we're at a turning point. So whether we need to know right off the bat through our onboarding form, people need to select whether they are new to Service Autopilot or using Service Autopilot already. Obviously, if you're not using Service Autopilot, you don't have a Service Autopilot estimate request or lead capture form. We'll build that out for you. Now, if you're already using Service Autopilot, there is two different options. The first is a legacy form and a new Service Autopilot form. The way that you can tell if you have a legacy form is if you go up to marketing and go to forms, and we'll show you where that is a little bit later in this webinar. If you cannot see the estimate request or lead capture from your website form, safe bet is you are using a legacy form. In that instance, we would go in and create the estimate request form and give you the HTML code to get the desired outcome. The third option is if you already have a Service Autopilot form for lead capture or website capture under marketing forms, we'll be able to see that, and that's something that's there. So based on the way that form is set up, sometimes it's going to be easier for you and your webmaster if we manipulate the exact form that you have and build upon it, or every once in a while, sometimes it's just easier for us to recreate that form and get you the new HTML code. But whatever the case may be, we really need to know is, are you using Service Autopilot previous to this? Yes or no. If you are you using an existing form or legacy form or no form at all? And that's going to drive our onboarding process. Now, this can be documented on the onboarding form that we're going to provide with this webinar. In addition, when you're done updating your lead or your lead letter, as well as your pre-estimate short-term education, we're going to click those options off so we know that you've completed this portion, and we can drive you on to the next step of our automations onboarding process for the lawn care industry. So, Lori, is there anything else we really need to touch on based on the estimate request? As you can kind of see in the flow chart, someone's hitting that estimate request, and we're driving them in SA, and we're tackling them with that lead letter. They're automatically entered. They're in that imaginary bucket, so we know whether they're interested in lawn mowing, fertilization, weed control, design build. Whatever those services are, that allows us to have that automated but personal conversation all the way through and keep them segmented in the customer lifecycle based on their particular wants and needs.
Oh, yeah, Mike, that's a great way of putting it. I really appreciate your going through that explanation. If we could just scroll up to the top just a little bit here, I'd like to kind of go over just to reinforce what the function is of the website lead capture form. So number one, again, the point is to get the leads created, auto-created in Service Autopilot. If you're using a Service Autopilot form, you may be, you can probably save yourself some time back, because if you're doing estimate requests from that form, we can leapfrog over that process. You don't have to then create the leads, and you can have the leads auto-create in Service Autopilot and buy that time back. Another thing Mike was talking about was on submit, the form sends a lead letter. And Mike, did you want to elaborate a little bit about why a lead letter is important and what that does for you?
Yeah, absolutely. A lead letter was a very instrumental part in my business at Callahan's Lawn Care. First introduced to that actually by Jonathan Potoshnik of the Lawn Care Millionaire and the co-founder of Service Autopilot. 2 very sunny days we spent down in Plano, Texas, or actually Richardson, Texas, where they're located. But the idea is not a new one, but Jonathan definitely put the context to this. And basically what the idea of that lead letter is, as soon as they request that estimate off that website, we're automatically emailing that lead letter to them. And that lead letter is going to be the 5 or 6 reasons why your business is different. We want to overcome the commonly perceived things of the service industry, particularly in the lawn care industry, that we're a chuck in a truck. We don't have insurance. We don't return phone calls. We're not professional. The list goes on and on. It's making me a little anxious to even thinking about it, Lori, but the truth is that's what the perception of the industry is. My opinion and my suggestion is embrace the misconceptions, and in 5 or 6 points, overcome them and address them up front and own the elephants in the room. And by doing so, you are going to be different than all your competitors in your local market and probably most of the national market. So 5 or 6 main reasons why we're different. It's not sleazy. It's not a sales pitch. It's education. Address the objection or the concern and why you are different. By doing so, we're going to have a complete differentiation, and hopefully we almost take them off the market of shopping you. Now, in addition, on the bottom, sometimes we see some people, and we did this in Callahan's, we included 2 or 3 client testimonials. Not needed, but it will reaffirm and enforce what we're driving in the 5 or 6 points above that. We provided you with a great template that the Simple Growth team has put together. I'm going to say vanilla content, but there's some really good content in there. Even some people in the different educational areas such as Academy and SA are using the pre-built boiler template lead letter that we've given them. But I would say go in and make it particular to your market and the concerns and the perception, good and bad, of contractors, and dive in and get that done. Very, very important, Lori, and I'm glad you asked about it, because that was a pivotal turning point in our business when we stopped acting like everyone else in our market and started acting like the powerhouse we were in the market.
And I can also, as a personal testimonial here, say that that does in fact work, because my 25-year-old riding mower finally bit the dust. I wasn't sad. It didn't owe me anything. But when it bit the dust, I thought, that's it. I'm going to look for a lawn care company. And when I hit the Callahan's website, I could see that they were different. And I got the lead letter, and I got the short-term education, the pre-estimate education, and it helped me make a great decision to hire Callahan's to have my lawn mowed. And that's how Mike and I met, right?
It was love at automation first sight with the lead letter.
It was love at the lead letter. So
absolutely.
Anyway,
so
it does work.
It is a powerful piece. It's your first way to impress them and be different than your competitors. So take an extra few minutes and make sure it's meaningful, and keep the sales pitch out of it. It's about education and differentiation.
Right. So we talked about how we're going to auto-create the lead. Then we're going to start the short nurture. And the short nurture, if we scroll down just a little bit, Mike, we can have checkboxes on your form, and we'll take a look at one of the forms in just a minute. But we can have checkboxes. We've got lawn mowing, aeration, lawn fertilization, hardscapes, design, build here. These are representative topics. We are by no means limited to these. What we'll do is we will help you download by downloading shell documents that we will link right to the automation for you, so that you'll have a different document for each service. Now, maybe you don't do lawn mowing at all. Maybe you do fertilization, weed control, and pest control, in which case then you would think it would be lawn fertilization, it would be pest control, it would be lawn pest control, such as grubs, things like that. We can have any categories that you would like here. And we will help you by the value here as we pre-create the documents for you, link them to the automation. We have vanilla content for you to then customize to what you want to tell your leads about this service. Mike, did you want to build on that?
Yeah, no, I think that you nailed it perfectly. Simple Growth, what we provide, as you probably already know, just to reinforce what the workflow is and just kind of set some expectations, is sales level 1 is included up to 3 services for the automation process. Sales level 2 and level 3 are 5 services. I believe we got up to about 7 areas that we can put in services on your main estimate request. Only 5 of those for level 2 and 3 are automated, and only 3 of those for level 1. Anything outside of those 7 just for listing would be an additional customization fee. But we did leave you next 2 spots if you've got something you don't want automated, but you want them to be able to request an estimate. Whole idea here is we want to just get the core services. So if you've got 20 different services you offer, you probably don't want all of them on the same form. You want your core services. So if you've ever been to an SA regional event, Service Autopilot regional event, where Jonathan Pechoshnik and myself have traveled around the whole U.S. here the last several years, one of the main core ideas that we talk about is gateway services. So these are your core services that can be sold over the phone or measured via Maps Pro or Google Satellite. We want to be able to sell them over the phone very simply to your core services, and then and only then we're almost downselling. We're simplifying the sales process. We can upsell the additional 15 to 20 services you may have, but we really want just your core gateway services on the website. We sell them, and then we can circle back with our upsell automations, some free, some paid, depending how you want to go. But we can go in and then upsell your more ancillary services to raise that client lifetime value. But lead capture on the website, let's stick to the top 5 automations that you want, or services you want to automate. And at most, you really don't want more than 7. It's going to get overwhelming. and there's going to be too many options. So let's stick to your core services, in my opinion. We'll upsell later to the other services that may not be listed. Lori, does that do that justice?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the main thing here is once you have these leads automatically created in Service Autopilot, then you're able to assign things, be able to have someone assigned to do the estimate. You can start nurturing them right away. And it's really a powerful tool because they are going to be getting materials from you even before, say, if I hit the website on a Friday night, then they're going to be getting a couple of emails before. I'm going to be getting a couple of emails before you've even had a chance to get into the office and do the estimate for me. So it's immediate customer engagement.
And as we're diving into that, we're going to hop into Service Autopilot here in a second to take a look at these actual documents that are going to be your homework to edit and customize on top of our vanilla content. Other thing I want to mention too, and we don't see it a lot, but sometimes we do in the lawn care industry, is folks will go out and ask literally way too many questions on the lead acquisition form, and that's going to hamper your lead acquisition. We really don't want to dial in and get too personal. The main things that are going to be in here standard stock are first name, last name, address, phone number, email, and the services they're interested in. We do not really want to get outside of that because it becomes too cumbersome and too intrusive. It's going to hurt your lead acquisition, which will affect how many estimates you get out during the sales season, especially in the spring. One of the best lines I hear sometimes from Ryan Dice. He's a big digital marketer, and he talks about this a lot. If he uses the analogy of going out on a first date. After the first drink, you don't ask the person, guy or girl, to marry you, engage you, because you've just had the first drink. It's awkward. At this point in the customer life cycle, we really just want to get the pertinent information, their name, phone number, and we'll ask the rest of the information we need on the second date. So this is a first date. You're buying them a soda or a drink at the bar. We're starting to get to know them. Once we start to build that relationship, we'll get the rest of the information. We're going to have a better conversion ratio and better lead acquisition off the website. So keep it simple, stupid. We'll get into the more advanced questioning down the line once we've captured and got them into Service Autopilot and entered them into our marketing database.
Excellent. And so, Mike, you can switch over then, and we can talk a little bit about the forms and also about the pre-estimate documents.
Did you want to go into the forms, Lori, first, or did you want to go into the pre-estimate documents? Which way you want to go?
Why don't we, since you're on this page, why don't we go ahead and take a look at the pre-estimate documents then? You've got some that are coded up right there, aeration and overseeding, before estimate. And we had been using a model where we had up to 3 emails per service. We still do have the capability to send up to 3 emails per service, but we did find that it was a little too much. And so what we've done is we would bring down a series of documents for you. And depending on how many you need, we typically recommend now 1 document per service. That's why you're seeing aeration and overseeding pre-estimate 1, 2, and 3. Because if, for example, all you did was, say, fertilization and weed control, you might want to actually have 3 documents that would nurture somebody over the period of, say, 3 days.
Yeah, and I agree. And it's a bit of an overkill with all 3 documents. So you're going to find that we have the one in use ready to go. That's the one you're going to edit. Maybe some higher end things such as design build, things like that, where it's, a $25, $30, maybe $40,000 investment. That buying cycle is longer. It's going to take longer for you to actually get out and do the on-site estimate with the person when you got to sit knee to knee. That's where the second and third document may come into play, but we've given you the flexibility in our done for you model. By default, it's set to 1, but by all means, if you want to open up email 2 and 3, just let us know at help@simplegrowthsystems.com, and we can get those other 2 turned on for you, the other 1, depending which way you want to go. But right now, I would say stick to the first document, get the marketing content in there, and we're going to be in good shape. Now, the marketing content for pre-estimate education is going to be that in itself, education. We want to educate them what is included, what's not included, and how a professional does the service themselves. And basically by educating them or creating that higher perceived value to allow you to charge at a higher price. And we highly recommend going into these pre-built documents and adding and overcoming any sales or price objections through education. This has nothing to do with a sales pitch, pure education. But two of the biggest common asked questions in my market in the upstate New York was, for lawn care at least, was, do I need to be home to have the service done? And if I have a fence gate in the backyard, are you going to close it behind you so the kids and the dog or the cat don't run out of the backyard? Those are the biggest concerns. We overcome them. We shorten the sales cycle, and we create a higher perceived value through education. That can all be done effectively in one email, in my opinion. But if you want to spread it over 3, timed out 1 day apart, we have that flexibility for you. And as you're going to find these documents, under the gear icon documents, under name description, it's PE, hit enter, and it's going to select just those documents for you. Anything else on pre-estimate education, Lori, that you can think of? And I know we actually need to hit on the lead letter as well. That's also going to be in your document listing of documents we need to edit. And that's the 5 or 6 reasons why your business is different. Maybe tuck in a couple testimonials, but that's going to be included in your document list as well, in the product roadmap, as well as a downloadable PDF at the end of this webinar. Is there anything else in this you want to hit, Lori, or should we hop over to the forms?
I think we can go ahead and hop over to forms. That would be great, Mike. Thank you.
All right, so you're looking at marketing forms. And you will not have as many options here, but obviously in our instance, we've got quite a few. But what you're going to be doing is looking for the website lead form, and the publish is where we're going to find the HTML code. But before I do that, I'm going to pop this open and let Lori explain some of the functionality and what we're actually going to fill in for you, and some of the areas of maybe even some tag logic that we ask that you probably don't want to touch because we've already done it for you.
Okay. So as Mike was saying, we're looking for the sweet spot between not enough and too much information to get the initial estimate done. We've got a form that we will go ahead and download for you, or if you already have a form, we can work with that form with you. We will meet you where you're at concerning website lead capture forms. We're going to collect the name, first name, last name, address, email, phone number, and then we will map the services that you're interested in here, so that if whatever your services are, in terms of, we will list them out here. And then in the background, you'll see that it says 7 tag conditions there on the left-hand sidebar. And we have logic there that will allow the short-term nurture to check to see if somebody checked one of those boxes. So the idea here is to be responsive to their interests. So if I have lawn mowing and garden maintenance that I have checked off, and I'm not interested in snow plowing, I don't get information on snow plowing. I only get things that I'm interested in. And we do that through the automation by adding tags that then identify what people are interested in, so that we can get them a speedy response. We can on submit, the form goes in, the lead gets created. The lead letter of the 5 or 6 reasons why you're different from your competition all go out to them, and then they will get a timed set of emails based on their interests. Now, typically, we'll send out the lead letter right away on submit, and then we will wait maybe until the morning to send the next email. And then usually by default, we have it set once a day for however many check boxes they have. They would receive another educational email about a service of interest specifically to that lead.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Larry. Appreciate it. We do ask, we set this up for you, so there's really no need to go into this form. We'll take care of that. That's part of the done for you service, but we did want to give you some context. If you do go in here and take a look at it, please, please, please do not hit the tag conditions. That is the logic that's going to make the automations work and keep those services in those imaginary buckets so we can have that automated but personal conversation. So the last thing we really need to show you with outside of this interior part of this form is what we're going to be doing is sending this to you. But if you ever need to go in and tackle this yourself, if you hit the publish button, there are several different types. of forms here. And Lori's going to go in and basically explain that the top 3 or 4 here are going to be revolving around SA and contingent on them. But the stripped form is going to be able to be styled, mobile responsive, and styled to your specific website. That's the one most likely that your webmaster is going to want. But including our Done For You service, we're going to send you all the options so you have them. So no need to go into the publish form, but if you ever want to get this or want to know where it is under these little gray publish buttons. You just want the one corresponding to the particular form that you want. That'd be the website lead capture. And under the stripped form, this is actually what we send your webmaster and yourself right here. So we'll email this all out to you, and then you can forward it to your webmaster. Lori, is there anything else we need to know about whether the hosted, the embed, full form, and everything else forms in Service Autopilot before we bring this training to fruition?
Well, I tell you what, I would like to just have a chance to explain a couple things without getting too far down into the weeds and geeking out here. The social, share with your network, the social link, the embed code, and the hosted form. These are all talking to Service Autopilot in order to display the form. Could you copy that link and open it in another window, Mike? And then we can give them a feel for what that form's going to look like. And this is going to be a basic Service Autopilot form. And so what we have here is information there about first name, last name, address, that kind of thing. And this form is actually fully functional once we download it for you. It's not deployed anywhere, but if you want to do a fair amount of testing yourself to see that you get everything set up the way you want it, you can do that without having to go to your webmaster first, okay? So the social, the embedded form, and the hosted form all talk to Service Autopilot. And that's a great way for you to look at those forms and then make sure that you're happy with them prior to taking them further. Now, the full form looks just like a Service Autopilot form. It contains all of the Service Autopilot formatting for that form. And that one would be, if you make changes to it, you would have to redeploy the form, because it is actually on your website and only communicates with Service Autopilot once you submit the form. Lastly, the stripped code is going to be the same form functionality. It's just going to have been stripped of the Service Autopilot formatting so that you can use cascaded style sheets or whatever you like to make that form look and feel like part of your website. So the unique thing Mike was talking about with the stripped form is that it is actually something that you can format to your specifications. And it can look, if you have a black background on your site, it can have a black background. It won't have the Service Autopilot formatting. Did that make sense, Mike, or is that too much?
No, that was perfect. So I didn't have the exact application up. So this is what it would look like after it was customized to your services. But this is the hosted form. It's very generic, but it works. So make sure you've got the information you want on here before we turn it live. A lot of webmasters will charge you per hour or per upgrade. So if you want to save some money, make sure you are comfortable with the hosted form, and then when you're comfortable with it, we'll give you that styled or non-stripped code so they can go in and style it and get it on your website, one and done. But as soon as you get the published form, under published, the hosted forms are live and ready to go right away. So
right. So it's not functionality that's different. It's just the formatting.
Exactly.
Right. It's the look and feel of the form with the stripped code. That's what I was trying to say, Mike. Thanks for clarifying that.
It's not easy stuff. This is craziness sometimes. But we're here for you, and that's what we do. So we help you kind of clarify that. But this is just basically driving through our onboarding process. So this is going to go over your pre-estimate education, short-term nurture. So that's the pre-estimate education in your lead letter. And you need to fill out our onboarding form, whether you're using Service Autopilot or you're a new user. And if you are a Service Autopilot user, whether you have the legacy or existing form. And if you have any questions, you can't figure that out, email us at help@simplegrowthsystems.com. We're here to help you. But we're trying to expedite this process to get this up and running 100% for you as soon as possible to create the best ROI, return on investment, in your Simple Growth sales automations for the lawn care industry. Lori, closing out, anything else we should know? Are we good?
I think we're great, Mike. Thanks so much for having this and including me.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate it. And as always, homework due in the next 5 days. Get the pre-estimate education done, your lead letter, and get us back the information regarding your website lead capture, whether you're new to SA. If you're not new to SA, is it legacy or existing form? We'll make that decision at that point if we got to create a new one, or we'll customize your existing. And as always, if you're looking to fast track your onboarding process, there's always last week's replay. So you can get your homework done, click last week's replay, and expedite the onboarding process. I think the record is about 4 days for the lawn care industry, one of our northern friends, but that's probably not really realistic. Do your homework. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. And between the 4 or 5 week process will get you up and running with a good ROI. But if you want to fast track it, there is always last week's replay, and you can fast track your onboarding process. So until next week, or on the replay for next week's version, if you're fast tracking, we'll see you here with Simple Growth, Lori and Mike Callahan.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.